AskReddit Daily. What sounds like fiction but is actually a real historical event. A Chinese emperor once ran in circles around a pillar to escape an assassin. He survived. I've used similar tactics with my father. 10 out of 10 would run around in circles again. Sorry to hear that your dad tried to assassinate you. I'm hearing yakety sax in my head, and the picture is beautiful. Also, his tomb is the size of the Great Pyramid and is still not opened. Historical sources describe the tomb as a huge underground city with palaces and rivers of mercury, which was partially confirmed with a satellite scan. The Chinese say that the technology is not good enough yet for the tomb to be opened without to be damaged, but there is another reason that they don't mention. It's the deep superstition to not f**k with the first emperor and his afterlife. Jack, a baboon, who was employed to change rail signals. After initial skepticism, the railway decided to officially employ Jack once his job competency was verified. The baboon was paid 20 cents a day and a half bottle of beer each week. It is widely reported that in his 9 years of employment with the railroad, Jack never made a mistake. I wonder what that salary negotiation was like. Right? Like, how did they figure to just give him half a bottle of beer rather than a full or a quarter of a bottle? The marathon at the 1904 Olympics in St. Louis. The first place finisher did most of the race in a car. He had intended to drop out and got a car back to the stadium to get his change of clothes and just kind of started jogging when he heard the fanfare. The second place finisher was carried across the finish line, legs technically twitching, by his trainers. They had been refusing him water and giving him a mixture of brandy and rat poison for the entire race. Doping wasn't illegal yet, and this was a terrible attempt at it, so he got the gold when the first guy was revealed. Third finisher was unremarkable, somehow. Fourth finisher was a Cuban mailman, who had raised the funds to attend the Olympics by running non-stop around his entire country. He landed in New Orleans, and promptly lost all of the traveling money on a riverboat casino. He ran the race in dress shoes and long trousers, cut off at the knee by a fellow competitor with a knife. He probably would have come in first, well, second, behind the car, had it not been for the hour nap he took on the side of the track after eating rotten apples he found on the side of the race. The 9th and 12th finishers were from South Africa and ran barefoot. South Africa didn't actually send a delegation. These were students who just happened to be in town and thought it sounded fun. The 9th was chased a mile off course by angry dogs. Note, these are the first Africans to compete in any modern Olympic event. Half the participants had never raced competitively before. Some died. St. Louis only had one water stop on the entire run. This, coupled with the dusty road and exacerbated by the cars kicking up dust, led to the above fatalities. And yet, somehow, rat poison guy survived to get the gold. The Russian delegation arrived a week late because they were still using the Julian calendar in 1904. Seriously, this needs to be a movie. This sounds like some Monty Python shit. In the 1800s there were street vendors in Egypt who sold ancient Egyptian mummies. Just lined them up on a street corner and sold them like they were umbrellas on a rainy day. English tourists would buy them to display as oddities. If only they were displayed. The gruesome history of eating corpses as medicine. I'm not clicking that link. The longest piano piece of any kind is Vexations by Erik Satie. It consists of a 180-note composition which, on the composer's orders, must be repeated 840 times so that the whole performance is 18 hours 40 minutes. Its first reported public performance in September 1963, in the Pocket Theatre, New York City, required a relay team of 10 pianists. The New York Times critic fell asleep at 4 a.m. and the audience dwindled to 6 masochists. At the conclusion, one sadomasochist shouted, "Encore." I've found my real father. I bet he waited 18 hours just to say that. The town of Rothenburg ob der Tauber in Germany, one of the country's oldest and most preserved cities. Essentially during the 30 Years' War, the Catholic army wanted to destroy the town because they resisted the church. Count von Tilly sounds like a Monty Python name, was going to destroy the town, but as a gesture of peace the town offered him a mass, 3.25 liters of local wine. He declared that if anyone in the town could drink the mass of wine in one go, he would spare the town and move on. Then someone just walked up and did it, so the army left. That's a solid excuse for alcoholism. Hans, don't you think you've had enough? We would all be dead with that attitude, Ingrid. The Glasgow ice cream war. 6 people died in a turf war over ice cream van routes. They were dealing heroin out of the vans. I love my city so much. As the plane lands in Glasgow, passengers are reminded to set their watches back 25 years. Frankie Boyle. The difference between Edinburgh and Glasgow is that if you see a man with a golf club in Edinburgh, he is going to play golf. The Great Stink of London in 1858. One summer the heat dried up the River Thames, where all the human waste went, and an unbearable smell pervaded throughout the entire city. All Parliament representatives were eventually coerced out of their homes outside of London to convene and solve the issue. Much to the citizens' glee, Parliament was held in their building on the bank of the River Thames, resulting in one of the fastest Parliament decisions ever made to reform the London sewer system. And the guy they had designed the system did it so well, the bulk of his planning is still in place today. The rise and fall of Alexander the Great. Never lost a battle in his life, conquered the whole known world, and only stopped because his soldiers were tired. And then died of the flu when he was like 32. Honestly, his life should be a vaccine commercial. No matter how great you are, vaccines will save your life. That's a genius idea. Actually a super good idea. Alexander the Great was king at 18, fought off assassins for years, beat back and conquered the whole world. Role of a super hot, fit dude sword fighting a bunch of bigger, hotter dudes, but he couldn't fight off the flu. Neither can you. Role of same hot dude vomiting and dying. No matter how great you are, get vaccinated. A town in France nearly danced itself to death in 1518 because of a dancing plague. My first genuine what in this thread. That's f***ing wild. Why has this not been tapped into for fiction stories? Imagine infected people not coughing or getting any flu-like symptoms, but instead looking elated, full of energy, happy, and then dancing with the other infected until they fall down dead, still smiling and twitching while others dance on. Stephen King. Come on, I know you got this in you. One interesting theory is that they had consumed ergot, a psychoactive fungus that can grow on grain in certain conditions. They were unknowingly baking this tainted grain into their daily bread and as a result were constantly high as balls. I believe the same fungus is posited as the source of the Salem witch trials. France on drugs, dances themselves to death. America on drugs, hangs everyone as a witch. In 2007 a paraglider got trapped in the updraft of 2 joining thunderstorms and lifted to an altitude of 10 kilometers. She landed 3.5 hours later about 60 kilometers north of her starting position, having survived extreme cold, lightning and lack of oxygen. Imagine how f***ing scary that would be. She doesn't remember much of it since she became unconscious quite quickly. If I recall correctly, she regained consciousness when she was back down at 3,500 meters. Imagine how f***ing scary that would be. Holy f***. Remember how thin the air is at the top of Mount Everest? Then realize this lady went substantially higher. How the f*** did she survive? If you collapse on Everest, you stay there. She was lucky enough to fall back down again as there was no mountain in the way. Return of Napoleon. An army was sent to intercept him, and they ended up fighting for him. If it was shown in a movie, most people would have considered it cheesy and unrealistic. His whole life was my vote. Check out the CIA's assassination attempts on Castro. Some highlights include planting a bomb in a large seashell, and then painting it bright colors and placing it on the ocean floor in hopes Castro would see it while swimming and pick it up. Exploding cigars. Poisoned cigars that were supposed to be given to Castro but were instead given to an unknown individual. Spraying Castro's broadcasting station with LSD. Poisoning Castro's shoes so that his beard would fall out. Poisoning a chocolate milkshake. Only the pills froze together in the freezer and shattered before they could be placed in the shake. contaminating a diving suit with a toxic fungus and giving it to Castro, only for the man set to deliver the suit to decide to give him a higher quality diving suit, a ballpoint pen with a very fine hypodermic needle. Today I learned that the CIA used to be run by Wile E. Coyote. During World War II, the Polish army conscripted a bear. Oh man, you're selling this short. They didn't conscript Wojtek. They enlisted him when command specifically said they couldn't take him when they deployed. The bear was given rations, a bunk, even beer and cigarettes just like any other soldier, and he actually served in the field. The unit was responsible for distributing munitions like artillery shells, and Wojtek, and I am not joking here, would help them move crates. The bear would literally pick up 100-pound crates of shells by himself and stack them up where they needed to go. Wojtek was not a mascot enlisted for giggles. The bear was a soldier. The bear was a hero. You have been visited by the toothbrushing papa. Like this video and subscribe to keep your gums clean.